Eagles have a bit of a hole at running back. The Browns have a really good running back who's not
No,
happy.
you can't have Kareem Hunt.
And
if I'm Andrew Berry, no.
Yeah.
Respectfully, deal with it.
and
Yeah, but hold on. Your guy asked to be traded.
Yeah.
He wanted out.
And
Have they just
know
turned
what?
into? Have they told him shut up and run? Mac and Mac here with you on Birds 365. McMullen and McDonald, joined by Daryl Ruiter from Cleveland. He covers the Browns for 92.3 The Fan out there in Cleveland. And I appreciate you coming on board with us. As I told our fans at the top of the show, we thought we'd be able to go in depth on every single aspect of the practice yesterday between the Eagles and the Browns. And then I checked her Twitter and she said, well, I'm not completely comfortable talking about the practice because I was kind of busy doing other things like Deshaun Watson. So we'll certainly start there. Did you have any inkling prior to yesterday that the settlement was close between the two parties? Did you know that was a possibility going into yesterday, that it was going to become the topic in Cleveland?
Well, this was the third red alert that we had gotten concerning a potential Deshaun Watson resolution since it began the appeals process. The first two, nothing ended up happening. But this week, you really felt like there was a lot of momentum, that they were getting closer and closer to a settlement. And it was pretty clear that if Deshaun Watson was actually going to play this year, they were going to have to settle. The NFL wanted the hammer dropped on him. They did not want him to play this season. That's why they appealed the 6-game suspension that was handed down by Sue L. Robinson within that 16-page scathing report concerning Deshaun Watson's alleged behavior. Keyword is alleged. But you got the sense something was going to break through at some point this week. And I think everyone was rooting for it to happen on Wednesday because that was an off day for the Browns and the Eagles were making the move to Cleveland. But as is the case when it comes to Browns football, the news off the field always trumps the product on the field.
Yeah, it's tough to get bigger than that, Daryl. I felt for you guys yesterday. I was looking at all the Cleveland writers and I'm like, oof, that is going to be a tough day for you guys. But from a football perspective, because we know all the off the field issues and certainly the criticisms. 11 games for the Cleveland Browns. I look at it this way: if Cleveland keeps their head above water and they're in the playoff race at some point, does that make it a little bit worse, a little bit more difficult for Kevin Stefanski? Because by that point, and we're talking November and Houston, which the NFL should have vetted the schedule a little bit better, but that's a different conversation. He will not have played an NFL game, for a real NFL game, for basically 2 years. There's going to be some rust, right? It's almost an untenable circumstance for all signs. He's better than Jacoby Brissett. We all know that. Even if Jimmy Garoppolo comes in, we all know he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. How difficult does that make it for Kevin Stefanski? Is this fair to Kevin Stefanski, this whole situation?
Well, hey, he signed up to be an employee of the Cleveland Browns. I'm not going to get into whether or not it's fair or not. We know the Browns' history when it comes to their head coaches. You work a couple of years and you get the other half of your contract in severance. That's just the way it is.
He's already on year 3. He's got a good run going.
Kevin's
Browns have a great severance package, from what I understand. Nobody pays people better not to work for them like the Cleveland Browns do. But as far as from a football standpoint, obviously it's difficult. Look, I mean, you saw the rust in Jacksonville, those 3 offensive series. But in fairness to Deshaun, he also didn't get a lot of help in Jacksonville in those series. You had a couple of drop passes. Lost the starting center on the second play of the game. The fumble on the second possession. So, yeah, Deshaun looked a little rusty, but did he really look rusty when you look at the lack of help that he got from his teammates? But, I said this on my station this morning, that I do think people in Cleveland and just football fans in general, because we're speaking from a pure football perspective here, and setting the off the field situation aside, I think people need to temper their expectations. He's not played in a game since January 2021. And to expect that he's going to be the guy that's going to come in week 13 and save the season over the final 6 weeks, and the Browns are going to go 6-0, and they're going to make the playoffs and everything, they're going to make a big playoff run. I like to live in this little world I call reality, and that's not reality. There are going to be some growing pains. Now, the expectation is that at some point, Deshaun Watson is going to return to that MVP caliber level of play that we saw in 2020 in Houston when he went on to lead the NFL in passing. Very successful personally, but the Houston Texans were not really a good football team, which is why he wasn't very much in the conversation for the MVP. But, the Browns, I can't remember the last time they had a starting quarterback throw for 4,000 yards in the season. It's been a long time. He should arguably be the best quarterback the Browns have had since Otto Graham. And that's with due respect to Brian Sipe, who won an MVP with the Browns. That's with due respect to Bernie Kosar, who took the Browns to 3 AFC championship games. That's part of the reason why the Browns took the chance that they took and are willing to put up with all of this negative publicity that they've received as a result of the allegations that were made against Deshaun Watson.
All right, so I'm going to ask you to look into your Browns crystal ball a little bit here. The process began yesterday with the practice after Deshaun faced the media and the announcement was made. He was the backup quarterback running with the twos. Assuming that's going to be the case going forward, how do you balance getting Jacoby Brissett the work he needs in with the ones to be able to have that decent record so that by the time you get to week 13, you can make a little bit of a playoff run? How is Stefanski going to balance the quarterback workload? First, certainly we know once the season starts, it's all Jacoby. But from now up until that first week and even in practice, to make sure both quarterbacks are capable of winning games for the Cleveland Browns this year.
Well, the decision's been made for him. There is no decision for Kevin Stefanski to make. His charge now is to get Jacoby Brissett ready for week 1 in Carolina against who we all presume will be Baker Mayfield and the Panthers. So it is Jacoby Brissett with the ones. They began that transition this week, and that's the way it's going to be from here on out. He will work with the first team offense. You'll see Deshaun Watson less and less in practice, and that's by design because they also have to get the backup quarterback, whether that's going to be Josh Rosen or Josh Dobbs. I think it's going to be Dobbs over Rosen, but you never know how these things kind of shake out. But you also have to get your backup quarterback some reps so that, God forbid, something happens to Jacoby Brissett in those 11 games, that you have somebody ready and capable to step in. So Deshaun Watson's workload is basically going to vanish over the next couple of weeks. He's allowed to participate up until the initial 53-man roster cut down on August 30th at 4 p.m. Eastern. Then he is not allowed to return to the facility until October 10th. He's eligible for reinstatement on November 28th for that, again, that game in Houston, the first weekend of December. But that's how Kevin Stefanski has to go about this. Now, Jacoby Brissett and the starters are not playing Sunday in the preseason game. My understanding is that the Eagles are doing the same thing because they're getting their work in. And quite frankly, I think they're getting better work in this practice because you can work on red zone, you can work on goal line or working out of your own end zone, do special teams periods. Like, you're not at the mercy of the flow of an NFL preseason game to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So that's why this is basically going to be like the old fourth preseason game that we all dreaded covering. Right?
Because we're still going to dread it, though.
It was just the back end of the roster playing and fighting for those key roster spots. But the decision's been made. They're going to get Jacoby Brissett ready. They've already began that process. And, Deshaun Watson gets phased out. He'll have to work on his own on the side. And of course, when he's away from the team and the facility, he'll have to keep himself football ready.
All right. I apologize in advance for this one, Daryl, but we are in Philadelphia. So I want you to rewind to the Browns and their ability to get Deshaun Watson in. The Eagles were one of those teams that were interested in Deshaun Watson, but he wouldn't consider them. And I saw his quarterback coach, Quincy Avery was out in Cleveland yesterday.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
Also, Deshaun Watson's quarterback coach at times, Josh Dobbs as well. They all took a photo together. That was one of the processes for Deshaun not considering Philadelphia because he and Jalen Hurts are so close. Can you take us back to Cleveland's sort of last minute run to get Deshaun Watson? Because they were out of it, right? They were out of it. And all of a sudden, they come back to the table with the first 5-year fully guaranteed deal in NFL history. Is that the bottom line? Is that just why? Because they want somewhere where no one else would go for Deshaun Watson?
Well, you know the saying, money talks and everything else walks, right? And that's ultimately, I think, what it came down to. And then also through the Baker Mayfield situation was kind of hovering. Mayfield did not take them flying to Houston to meet with Watson as leadership was flying back. Mayfield posted basically a peace out statement on his social media. It's been real, Cleveland. Thanks for everything, but I'm out of here. And when he ultimately submitted the trade request, which, by the way, came hours after they learned from Deshaun Watson's camp, they were the first team eliminated from contention for his services. And I think that when Baker put in the trade request, or Baker's people put in that trade request, they're like, yeah, whatever we have to do to get Deshaun Watson, we're going to do. And the one way to do that is just bags and bags of cash. And we're just going to fully guarantee the contract. We're going to take away any and all protections for recouping money in the event of a suspension, which has been a big criticism from the national media. My argument had always been, if you're going to criticize it, criticize the right thing. Criticize them not protecting recouping part of the signing bonus. Don't criticize the structure of the contract, because that's how all NFL teams, including the Browns, do their big contracts. Here's a pile of cash for your signing bonus, and we give you a veteran minimum salary for the season. So criticize them protecting the signing bonus, not the minimum year one salary. But yeah, that's what I think ultimately came down to. And then what do you know? Magically, after they say we'll fully guarantee $230 million, Deshaun Watson's like, yeah, sure, we'll go ahead and waive the no trade and become a Cleveland Brown, talk to the Houston Texans, finalize things on your end. They send 6 draft picks, including 3 first rounders to the Texans. And as they say, the rest is history. But yeah, the Browns were the first team eliminated from the sweepstakes. But to Andrew Berry's credit, I'm speaking from a pure football standpoint here. To his credit, he didn't take no for an answer. He circled back, and he was able to make sure that he got the player that he wanted.
All right, one last Deshaun question, then I want to get into the Browns and Eagles and what you expect to see this afternoon of practice. Maybe you got something off the record. I doubt highly anyone would say this on the record. Were the Browns actually rooting for an entire season suspension? Because if that were the case, then they would still have 5 years to run on the contract. Because it's only 11 games, this is the first year of the contract. They're now only going to have 4 on the back end. Do you think the Browns were actually disappointed that he didn't get a full year suspension?
No, I think that they were disappointed that the suspension got lengthened. I believe that they went into this process with the complete understanding he was going to be suspended. But I kind of feel like their expectation was they were thinking anywhere from 2 to 6 games, which originally Sue L. Robinson gave him 6 games. And frankly, that was a win for the Browns as well as Watson. But no, I don't believe that they were rooting for him to be suspended for the full season. To your point, yeah, a little bit. The Browns kind of get penalized here, and understandably so, for those that are angry that the Browns did what they did by acquiring him and giving him this record contract and fully guaranteeing everything. They're not going to get the full benefit of a full 5 seasons from him, but their expectation is some point down the road, they will renegotiate, they will extend him. He is going to be their franchise quarterback, hopefully for the next decade. Again, we're speaking from just a pure football perspective. Yeah. And that's how Andrew Berry has approached this. Part of the reason that they redid his Texans deal and just didn't take on the contract as it existed was because they wanted to get that 5th year of control. And they, to your point, they sort of lose that now because they only get him for 6 games.
Daryl, let's talk about the Browns. To me, from the outside looking in, a very talented roster. We know Andrew Berry here well in Philadelphia. Catherine Raish also, he brings over the Browns. So the Eagles and Browns, they're pretty familiar with each other from a football ops standpoint. I see Myles Garrett now. He's been out with personal issues over the past couple of days. Very talented pass rusher, maybe the best in football. The offensive line is right there with Philadelphia as one of the best in the NFL. Maybe if they brought J.C. Tretter back, they'd be the best. They had some issues with offensive line, offensive center injuries. How talented is this team? We know when Watson comes back, that's part of the reason they did it, right? Because they think they're a Super Bowl team with the right quarterback. Do you think that roster is a Super Bowl level roster?
With Deshaun Watson? Yes, I do. Now, can they get there? That's a different discussion. But from a talent perspective, yeah, absolutely. I mean, part of the problem for the Browns over the years since being reincarnated in 1999 is their ability to acquire and field elite talent. Well, when you look at their roster, they have elite players at, again, we're going to include Watson here. They now have elite players at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, defensive end, and cornerback. Every major position on the field where every cornerstone for roster building, the Cleveland Browns have an elite player. Okay. Now you go a little deeper here, right? They have one of the best offensive lines in the National Football League. Fairly important, right? Then you look at the rest of the composition on the defensive side of the ball. They've got a pretty talented secondary. It's a passing league. Very important. Now, we're going to find out here if the depth is as good as I believe it to be or not. Time will tell that. But yeah, if Deshaun Watson was available from week one, I think that the Browns not only are a playoff team, but you could put them on the periphery of the conversation of being a Super Bowl contender. And Andrew Berry, I think, went into this offseason feeling that quarterback was the missing piece. Yeah, Baker Mayfield, good, solid quarterback, but he's not elite. And we don't project him as an organization to become an elite player. So what do we have to do? We've got to find that missing piece, which the Browns haven't had for decades. And they feel that they've done that in Deshaun Watson. So, yeah, if Watson's on the field, this is a Super Bowl caliber roster when you look at it. Now, injuries, attrition, things like that, all those, you have to factor all that in. But when I look at both sides of the ball and I look at those key cornerstone positions, Amari Cooper, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Joel Bitonio and Wyatt Teller, two of the best guards in the NFL. You look on the defensive side of the ball, Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, who combined for over 20 sacks last year. You look at the secondary, Denzel Ward, Pro Bowl, multiple Pro Bowls on his resume already. Up-and-comer Greg Newsome. You got Greedy Williams. Look at that secondary. Ronnie Harrison, John Johnson III, Grant Delpit coming into his second full season. They have high expectations for him. So, yeah, there is a lot of talent. But as you know, talent only takes you so far in the National Football League. You still got to go out there and do it week in and week out.
And then Jacoby Brissett is going to have a big say on how good the Browns are this year. All right, John touched on it. I want to follow up. J.C. Tretter. Cleveland lost their center early on, first preseason game. Last year, Pro Football Focus had Tretter ranked as one of the 5 or 6 or 7 best centers in the NFL. He was a free agent. He's the head of the Players Union rep. I say shame on the Browns. I say shame on a bunch of NFL teams that I think Tretter would be a better center for than the guy they have right now. But the Browns had Tretter and no Tretter. The background of the situation, you've got a better grasp on it than any of us do. Browns just wanted to move on. They were ready to go in another direction. Maybe they thought Tretter was a little overrated. Tretter wanted no more part of being in Cleveland. Is it a money issue? Did Tretter ask for something and the Browns weren't willing to play? I gave you a bunch of different options there. You tell me. Why isn't J.C. Tretter the center of the Cleveland Browns?
Let's see. Which door am I going to pick?
Yes, exactly. Behind door number what?
Okay, so here's what happened. J.C. Tretter was a salary cap casualty, number one. Number two, the writing was on the wall a couple years ago when they drafted Nick Harris out of Washington. Everyone, the day he was drafted, well, there's J.C. Tretter's eventual replacement. So this became year three for Nick Harris. When they released Tretter, they saved over $8 million and change off the salary cap. Okay, now the counter argument is, well, Daryl, the Browns have the most salary cap space of any team. Why do they need it? Well, because next year they're about to run into salary cap hell with Deshaun Watson's contract. Yeah, he's going to be, that kind of kicks in, and all these other extensions, Myles Garrett's extension, Denzel Ward's extension. They're paying their players, Wyatt Teller, Nick Chubb. So they need all this salary cap room that they can get. The other thing, and this isn't a Browns thing, this is an NFL thing. I think the fact that he is the NFLPA president is being used against him. Yep. The fact that he has advocated for player safety, and he's been a guy that says, don't go to OTAs, don't go to the offseason program. It is voluntary. Keyword voluntary, right? It used to be, it's voluntary, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's voluntary, but your butt better be here, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, right? And so that has shifted. And so you have coaches. Oh, I mean, look, Tampa Bay lost their starting center, right? They didn't run out and go get J.C. Tretter. Well, who's the quarterback down there? Tom Brady. During COVID, what happened? Tom Brady's out doing all these workouts and I'm going to say it, violating the
he did.
Put in place, right? He's a competitive guy. He's like, I'm fine. I don't care. I just want to get ready for football, right? So I don't think that J.C. Tretter's philosophical approach, I think is the way to put it, meshes with a lot of coaches or a lot of players. While there are some that, and again, JC, as the NFLPA president, his job is to advocate on behalf of players and to enforce the collective bargaining agreement. And since the offseason program is voluntary, he's enforcing the letter of the law. It is voluntary. So his players are not required to show up, even though coaches want to say you need to be here. It is voluntary. And so I don't think that sits well with a lot of people. And that's not fair to J.C. Tretter because he is doing his job as a representative, just like those that were criticizing the NFLPA for backing Deshaun Watson in defending him.
Yeah, it's their job.
Right. Yeah. It's not about what Deshaun was accused of. It's about he is a member of a union, and the union's job is to advocate on behalf of one of their members under the terms of the collective bargaining agreement. That's what it's about. Yeah. So, I do feel like J.C. Tretter is being slighted by teams because he's the NFLPA president. And is it wrong? From my standpoint, 100%. I think J.C. Tretter is a real good player. He missed one game in his time with the Browns since he signed with Green Bay as a free agent. He missed a single game, and that was because of COVID protocols. That dude played through knee injuries. He played 3/4 of a season with a high ankle sprain. Dude would come into the locker room every single day wearing a walking boot, couldn't practice, could barely walk. You could see the pain on the man's face out there every Sunday and playing at a high level. Not just he was on the field, but he played well. So he's a good, dependable player. I feel like he's got a lot in the tank and a lot to offer teams, but he is the NFLPA president. And I will say the quiet part out loud on behalf of him. He should be on a roster somewhere.
Agreed.
But
no question. He's a top 10 center in this league. There's no doubt about it. And there's a lot of teams with bad centers that could use J.C. Tretter.
And he's a great guy in the locker room too. Setting aside the union aspect of it, good teammate, good human being. Like he is everything you want in your locker room, and he is everything that you want representing your organization.
Yeah, you would think. And that wink part, Daryl, you were talking about, it's still wink for if you're the bottom end of the roster. If you're, 50th and you're on the bubble, you better show up for that voluntary work. So still some of that going on. But I do want to get some intel I mentioned the Eagles and the Browns and their familiarity with each other. The Eagles have a bit of a hole at running back. The Browns have a really good running back who's not
No,
happy.
you can't have Kareem Hunt.
And
if I'm Andrew Berry, no.
Yeah.
Respectfully, deal with it.
And
but hold on. Your guy asked to be traded.
Yeah.
He wanted out.
And
Have they just turned into? Have they told him shut up and run?
Right.
You're
Exactly.
a
I'm
little
under no
dismissive.
obligation contract.
In pro
Paying you
sports,
6
guys
$250.
dictate terms more than they've ever done before. And certainly, your running back here in town has let his feelings be well known. He doesn't want to be there. Have they come to an accord that? Sorry, we're here. Suck it up and get it done, Kareem.
He's a Cleveland native, so he does want to be here. He just wants the security of being here. He's in the final year of his deal with incentives. He's going to make about $6.25 million, which is pretty good money for a number 2 running back.
Right.
Now, real quick, Daryl, you say number 2 running back. He's not a number 2 running back, but he is in Cleveland.
100%. And I was just about to follow up with that. He's not a number 2 running back. He is a legit top running back. And Stump Mitchell, his position coach, was like, yeah, he could be the best in the game. He's that good. So that is a luxury I'm not giving up. And especially if I'm Andrew Berry, because I'll have my franchise starting quarterback available. I need every weapon to surround Jacoby Brissett with. So if you want Ernest Johnson, we can have a conversation about that. If you would like to, someone a little further down the depth chart, like maybe John Kelly Jr., we can have a conversation about that.
Well, the Eagles could use Ernest Johnson. They could use
Ernest is a nice young player. I like him a lot. Versatile, can return. Certainly isn't going to wow you in the return game, but he can do it proficiently. But yeah, if I'm the Browns, I'm not moving Kareem Hunt. I respect that he wants to be traded. Hey, I want to win the lottery. But in this little world I call reality, that ain't happening. So, Kareem, you're under contract. We're going to pay you well. You're going to get opportunities, especially early in the season. And so put up your numbers here. We'll put you in position to contribute. Put up your numbers here. Go to free agency next year and get your big money. But, if I'm Andrew Berry right now, I don't think the Browns have the luxury of being able to trade Kareem Hunt right now.
Fair enough. All right, Daryl, we'll end on this note. You'll gladly go back to work and actually watch practice today and be able to evaluate football. Right. Good on you, big guy.
This is Cleveland. Anything is possible.
Okay. Something else could come down the
never
pike.
Count the chicken.
I get you. I said this to the Eagle guy, Eddie Kratz, we had on earlier. Yesterday's practice went an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Over. Today's practice will go less than an hour and 40 minutes or more than an hour and 40 minutes.
I'm going to say an hour and 45 minutes. So I'll take the over.
All right. We got 2 overs. I want the under.
Slightly over. Daryl, great stuff. We appreciate having you on, and thanks. Know that we had you on specifically to talk about the practice. You didn't get a chance to watch it because, you had some other business to take care of. Understood. You did a great job breaking down the Browns with us and giving us some Deshaun Watson background information. Thanks for doing it. We'll get you back on down the road.
Thanks a lot for having me, guys. Pleasure.
Thanks, Daryl.